bring in Pennsylvania Republican Senator Pat Toomey. Senator, thanks for being here.
Hey, Brett, thanks for having me.
What's your reaction to this move by the president as we see gas prices high as we start heading into the holidays?
It's unbelievable, Brett. Let's be honest. What was the very first thing, I think, or certainly one of the very first things this president did was shut down the Keystone Pipeline, a tremendous source of oil, suspending the ability to drill for oil and gas in places where we have oil and gas. And so nobody should be surprised, and I don't think most Pennsylvanians are surprised, that prices are going through the roof, supplies are shrinking, and now the president goes around pleading with OPEC countries to increase their production. How ridiculous. And this isn't going to work. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve, he releases some oil from that. The swing producers in OPEC can decide to just scale back what they produce to make sure that the prices stay high. Fundamentally, you can't begin the process of crushing supply and not expect to see a price spike.
Here is the president and the energy secretary about what you're just talking about. Take a listen.
My effort to combat climate change is not raising the price of gas. But what it's doing, it's increasing the availability of jobs.
No president controls the price of gasoline. And the reality is we have to take some time to get off of oil and gas. We recognize this. This is a transition. Let's build out this clean energy future so we don't have to rely upon volatile fossil fuels.
So are there decisions changing the price of gas and how they're dealing with all these things?
Brett, you can't suspend the laws of supply and demand as however much you might like to. Nobody can. And so when the president takes measures to curb supply, it's going to catch up, and it's going to result in higher prices when demand continues. In fact, the president has made the demand problem worse with all the massive amount of money that they're spending. So the misguided policies of this administration are certainly contributing to the price spikes that we're seeing.
Here is Congressman Ro Khanna. We had him on last night, Democrat. Take a listen.
Build Back Better actually will help with the supply chain issue. It will help bring more people into the workforce. It will ease some of the inflationary pressure. So I believe the bill actually will help solve the problem.
Build Back Better obviously passed the House, now in the Senate. You have some specific concerns about it. Can you address what Congressman Khanna said there and kind of list your concerns?
Well, it's too long a list, but I could get started, Brett. I mean, first of all, the idea that this bill that according to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania believes will cost $4.6 trillion over 10 years if it were to become law, the one that the House passed, the idea that that's going to make inflation go down, I don't think anybody actually believes that. Look, across Pennsylvania, what I'm hearing from people that contact my office and that I meet with is they're really worried about this massive overspending. It's like it never ends. Now, I understand why during the peak of the pandemic and the economic collapse that was caused by government shutting down our economy, we had to take dramatic steps. That ended up being $3 trillion of spending above and beyond the usual spending. Then President Biden comes in with the economy already recovering, spends another $2 trillion. Then there's the $1 trillion plus for the infrastructure bill. Now they want who knows how many trillions. Brett, this all adds up to maybe $10 trillion over 10 years. And we wonder why we're seeing record inflation. I mean, the inflation in October was the worst we've had in 30 years. That's a huge problem. You think about the actual individual items in this bill. There's all kinds of programs that will really seem designed to make the middle class dependent on government. New welfare programs.
I want to put up a couple of concerns that the Republicans have expressed already. $40 billion for New York public housing, the 15% domestic corporate minimum tax, the state and local tax cap increase, universal pre-K, and to sunset the programs to reduce the CBO score cost. I mean, that's just a tip of the iceberg from a Republican point of view, right, in the Senate.
Tiny fraction, right? All the tax increases are going to make us less competitive as a nation against other countries around the world. The spending is just, as we talked about, staggering. By the way, so many of these new programs they want to launch, very, very high income limits. There's people who have many multiples of the median family income, people who make several $100,000, they really don't need the taxpayer to pay for their child care. The SALT deduction, the state and local tax deduction, that's for people who make like millions of dollars. It's incredible how much that is going to be concentrated to benefit very high income people. The list just goes on and on. This is a terrible idea, loaded with terrible features. It's going to make inflation worse. It's going to keep people out of the workforce, by the way. So many of these programs, there's no work requirement, so you're going to get a lot of money without having to work. Guess what? Some people aren't going to work. It's a really bad idea.
You've worked with Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia on a number of different things,
yep,
including bills you've sponsored together. Now he is kind of a voice in standing up to a lot of things inside this bill. What's your assessment of Senator Manchin, whether he's going to hold the line about what he said before about it?
Well, God bless him. He's been holding it so far, and one of the things he's pointed out is the dishonesty in the accounting for all this. They've decided to have some of these programs, launch them, have them terminate after a year with the expectation that they're not going to end after a year, but by, in theory, limiting them to 1 year, the score is lower. So Senator Manchin's onto that, and he has called them out on that. He gets the idea that making middle income and upper middle income Americans dependent on government makes no sense. So I'm hoping he'll stick to his guns. I don't know. He has said there is some elements of this that he can support. So in the end, maybe there is something that passes with his support. I don't know exactly, but I hope it's nothing like what they're considering right now, because this is terrible.
Senator Pat Toomey, we appreciate your time.